Yo, welcome back to the channel, boys and girls. In today's video, we are taking a first look at Winspace's brand new released Winspace SLC version 3. I'm really excited to get this bike built up. So in today's video, guys, we're going to be talking about just exactly what the SLC version 3 is. Of course, we're going to be talking about the price, the weight, the fit and finish, and of course, my plans for the build. And I'm also going to include my ride predictions for this brand new SLC version 3. So without further ado, let's begin. Now, before we talk about just what exactly is this Winspace SLC version 3, I just want to give you a little bit of a backstory. So I've been on YouTube now for about 4 years or so now, and Winspace was actually one of the very first companies to believe in me back when I only had like maybe 2,000 or 3,000 followers on YouTube. Back then, about 3 years ago, they sent me out their Winspace T1500 all-out aeroframe as well as their Winspace hyper wheels, and I love both the frame and the wheels. I still use them to this day. It's been almost 3 years since owning that frame. I probably have racked up somewhere almost close to maybe 8,000 or 9,000 miles on that bike. I love it. And I am very appreciative of the fact that Winspace was able to believe in me at a time in my YouTube career when I really was just starting out. So I love that frame. And nowadays, Winspace, they still have their aeroframe with their T1550 frame set. Of course, they also just released their Winspace Agile frame, which is supposed to be their multi-purpose, do-it-all, all-arounder frame. And then the SLC in their lineup has always traditionally been their climbing focused frame set. Now, the difference is with this SLC version 3 version, some of the things that they've changed versus the outgoing version 2 model is it now has fully integrated cables, which means no more having to route the hydraulic cables through the exterior of the fork. Everything is fully integrated through the frame itself. It still has the classic 27.2 round seat posts, which I actually love. And I think for the traditionists out there, if you want to be able to swap out the seat post for something else, it should be very easy to do since it is a 27.2 round seat post. Some of the other changes to this version 3 is they've actually covered the holes for the through axles on both the fork as well as on the chainstays. Maybe this should add up a little bit more of aerodynamic advantage, who knows? And they've also used drop seat stays for added comfort, and I'm assuming also for a little bit more of an aerodynamic advantage as well. And just the overall aesthetics of this version 3 of the SLC, it does lead itself to be a little bit more aerodynamic aesthetically versus the outgoing version 2 model. Now, the reason why Winspace agreed to send this frame out to me is because they really wanted me to benchmark this version 3 SLC against my specialized Tarmac SL8 Pro, which I absolutely love that bike. As you guys know, I've done a review on that, and it is fantastic, because it turns out that Winspace actually benchmarked this new SLC against the Tarmac SL8 frame set. And so some of the things that they focused on was making both the head tube and the bottom bracket areas a little bit more stiffer versus the version 2 of the SLC. And that's also why you notice that with this version 3, it does have a little bit more of an aerodynamic approach and aesthetics to the profile versus the version 2. But they still wanted to keep some of the more classic lines that customers are used to with the SLC. So they wanted to keep a little bit more traditional, but still have a little bit more of a modern day aesthetic profile, because it is a climbing bike, but people do want the more modern aesthetics. Now, you're probably asking myself, why did I specifically choose this SLC frame versus something like the brand new Agile or even the brand new release T1550 version 2 frame set? Well, the reason being is because the Agile, it just really didn't speak to me in terms of style and just how I ride locally here in Chicago. And I just didn't think that the brand new T1550 version 2 aero frame set was much of a significant difference versus my current T1500 frame. I still love that frame. Like I said, I've had that frame for almost 3 years now. It's a fantastic frame, and I don't think the changes really merited enough for me to try the T1550. And especially nowadays in the world where you have the one bike to rule them all, we are starting to see aero bikes make a reintroduction into the marketplace. I always really wanted to try a really classic looking frame. And personally speaking, I think this brand new SLC looks fantastic. I think it's going to age very, very well. And it's just nice to kind of deal with just a frame that just looks classic. You don't have to worry about all these, bulging the side profile, whatever. It's just going to be a classic bike that you'll be able to take everywhere. It's going to always fit in no matter where you ride. Now, as far as sizing goes, I went with the size large. In the color that you see, it's the raw carbon color with just the faintest of clear coat, of course, for protection. And all of this was in aid to keep the weight of the frame set down. Now, the integrated handlebars, which are not included in the price, I went with a 38 centimeter wide, and then the stem length on the cockpit is 125 millimeters in the stem length. Now, just keep in mind that I actually have this same exact dimensions and setup of an integrated cockpit on my T1500 Aero Winspace frame, and they are perfect, especially when it comes to the ergonomics. However, also keep in mind that just how they measure out these cockpits, you should expect that the stem length to be effectively more like 135 or maybe even 140 millimeters in stem length, because that's just the way these Chinese brands measure out the stems on their integrated cockpit. Now, next up, let's talk about price. So the retail price of this, once this eventually rolls out, I believe the official release of this is going to be in a couple of weeks, based on the time of me filming this video. But the retail price is $1,980 USD, and it does not include integrated handlebars. So yes, that is a lot of money. And we are starting to see a trend where a lot of these Chinese brands, they have been creeping up in price. Unfortunately, even if the quality does get better, what has been happening here is it is starting to push people to simply just go back to the Western brands. So I do appreciate what Winspace is trying to do. They're trying to make a modern looking climbing bike. They're trying to make sure that the quality control is there. But there is going to be a lot of pressure on Winspace's side to offer up a quality product at this price point. You're basically talking about $2,000, and then when you include the cockpit, it's probably going to be another $300. So you're in like $2,300 for just the frame set. But what I can say is, based on my T1500 frame set and the various hyperwheels that I've used, and even just some of the customers locally here in Chicago who have used these products, quality has never, ever been an issue with Winspace as far as I can tell. No brand is perfect, even Specialized for how much they charge for their bikes and their frame sets. They themselves are also not without flaws, but just know that just from an overall big picture perspective, Winspace has never had an issue with quality, and the fit and finish has always been superb.
Now let's take a look at what is inside this lovely box of hardware that you get along with your SLC version 3 frame set. And my apologies for the background. Right now we are currently in cicada season here in the Midwest, so if you hear that in the background, my apologies. So anyway, first off, of course, you get the headset bearings, which of course is important. You also get a set of clamps for the 7x9 carbon rail saddles, which is a nice touch. Of course, the 7x7 clamps are standard. Of course, you get the through axles, which are individually packaged. You get some other hardware like the bottle cage bolts, which I have already removed from the frame. You also get the rubber holder for the Shimano Di2 battery mount, which is nice. Winspace also included a direct mount hanger for the rear derailleur, which is a nice touch. I will probably be making use of that. You also get some various rubber grommets to plug some of the holes in the frame, just in case you are not running mechanical shifting. You get, of course, the headset cover, the cap that goes just above the bearings. This is a fantastic touch. Huge shout out to Winspace for including this. I have been asking for this for years. And basically what this is should you decide to run a separate bar stem combo, this allows you to still be able to route the cables into the head tube, into the headset, so that you can route everything through the frame. So this just stacks basically on top of the headset cover. Of course, as I drop this, you also get the various spacers for the headset stack. Really nice touch. A lot of these things is what I also got with my T1500 frame set as well. So really nice touch by Winspace. They really have thought about everything. Of course, you get the expander plug, This should be pretty easy as long as with the top cap as well. And last but not least, of course, which is very important, you also get the collar clamp for the 27.2 seat post. So Winspace thought of everything you're gonna need for the build. So good job, Winspace, on that front.
And next up, let's go ahead and talk about weight.
I'm gonna be everything to you. I'm gonna be your father. I'm gonna be your friend. I'm gonna be your lover. But you gotta believe in me. Sorry. Anyway, huge shout out to Willie Hutch with the original soundtrack LP from the motion picture The Mac, classic movie that was the pinnacle of blaxploitation films, with such awesome songs as I Choose You, Baby. Sorry. Shout out to Willie Hutch though. Anyway, all right, we are going to be weighing out my Winspace SLC version 3 frame set in a size large. Now, because I want to have a similar setup to my specialized Tarmac SL8 Pro frame set, I have went ahead and removed the front derailleur hanger because on that frame, I do have it set up as 1x. I have also, of course, removed the bottle cage bolts. So we should have an accurate reading. Okay, so we have for the frame in a size large, the SLC version 3, we have 803 grams. Next up, let's weigh out the uncut fork. Uncut fork, we have 412 grams. 412 grams for the fork, uncut. Next up is the 27.2 carbon seat post, which of course the clamps are attached. 178 grams. And last but not least, let's weigh out the integrated cockpit. The specs on these is 380 millimeters or 38 centimeters as far as the width. And then the stem on this is 125. But typically for these integrated cockpits, especially from Winspace, they typically measure like 5 to 10 millimeters longer. So this is more equivalent, in my opinion, to about a 140 millimeter length stem, which is perfect for what I need. So let's weigh this out as well. 365 grams. So let's continue.
So for a complete frame set of this Winspace SLC version 3, the total weight is 1,421 grams. Now, for comparison's sake, comparing that to my Tarmac SL8 Pro and my satin blue finish, the frame on that is 827 grams. This is all the same size, 827 grams. The seat post is 169 grams. The fork is 397 grams, giving a grand total for the complete frame using the same specs, no front derailleur hanger that has been removed, no bottle cage bolts, all that stuff. Grand total is 1,393 grams. So this SLC version 3 is only 28 grams heavier than the SL8. And although the SLC is more of a climbing focused bike, I have to say that the weight is very, very respectable. Just the fact that we are now getting frames from these Chinese brands that are coming in under 1,000 grams that have really good fit and finish, are going to perform well based on their previous models, I would say that is a W in my opinion. And in fact, this Winspace SLC version 3 is actually going to be the second lightest complete frame set that I've ever tested on this channel, just right behind my Tarmac SL8 Pro. So good job, Winspace, on that front for producing something that is very lightweight for the price point while still offering up respectable fit and finish as well. Now that brings me to my next point. Let's talk about just some of the fit and finish on this frame. Now, as far as I can tell, I don't have any sort of camera cable to inspect inside the frame. That's not what this channel is about, but everything I can tell so far, as far as fit and finish goes, everything looks very clean and very neat. I didn't see any rough or sharp edges anywhere around the bottom bracket area or the head tube. Even the caliper mounts look very, very clean. You can see just some of the metal or the aluminum inserts for the rear chain stays. You can see that they've made an effort to sand everything down, so everything should be flat. And even with my T1500 frame set, I didn't have any problems aligning the calipers to the rotors, because just the fit and finish and facing everything was absolutely flawless in my opinion. In fact, It was right up there with my Specialized Tarmac SL8 and even my previous two Specialized LA Sprint frames as well. So good job, Winspace, on that front.
Now, speaking of bottom brackets, Winspace opted for using a press-fit BB86 over a T47 bottom bracket, which I think for long-term, if you plan on using this bike long-term, I think that a BB86 is actually a preferred option for me. It's actually easier to install than the T47 with its tiny splines. However, using a BB86, it can make it difficult if you are planning to use a SRAM Dub 29mm standard bottom bracket for, of course, SRAM ETAP. This can be problematic as the bearings inside of a Dub bottom bracket for BB86, they have to be pretty small in order to fit that smaller diameter, which could potentially shorten the life of the bearings. I haven't had this issue. I'm running a BB86 Dub bottom bracket on my Winspace T1500, and I had to change out the bottom bracket after about 5,000 miles. So I'll take that for what it is. And finally, guys, moving on to my plans for this build and just some of my ride predictions. Now, Winspace did send me out a set of wheels for this build, which I'll cover in a different video. I'll probably cover those wheels in the first ride impressions of the SLC. I will be going SRAM Force ETAP 1x. I have that same setup on my Tarmac SL8. So just for the sake of trying to compare these two bikes one-to-one, that's a tried and true option for me, and it's very easy installation for me versus going something with like a Shimano Di212 speed, and it is a little bit more affordable at this time. Now, for my predictions of this SLC version 3, my prediction is I suspect that this SLC is going to ride similar to my Tarmac SL8 in terms of comfort, climbing, and accelerating. But I highly doubt that this SLC is going to be as fast as the SLC on the flat areas here in Chicago. And honestly, that's okay. The SL8 does cost about $1,500 more than the SLC. And at the end of the day, the SLC really is intended for climbing. But just how this frame looks, I really like how it looks. It just has a very classic, traditional look for a frame set. I think it's going to fit in no matter where you ride in the world, and it's going to age very, very well. And on top of that, with Winspace's tried and true quality, the fit and finish, just the way they faced the mounts, the bottom brackets, all that stuff, this is going to be a really high quality frame, and I'm excited to see how this is going to be, especially when I'm able to take it out in the countryside on some proper hills. I'm very excited to get this bike built up. So that's going to do it for today's video, guys. If you are watching this video at this time, you probably have noticed that Winspace is doing a rollout of this brand new SLC version 3 frame set. I know a few other YouTubers are also getting this frame as well, or they have already done videos. And I'm just excited that 4 years later, since the very beginning of working with Winspace, that I'm still able to provide you content from that brand. And I'm also happy that I am able to just throw in my opinion to this particular frame set. So as always, guys, questions, comments, or concerns, please feel free to leave them down below, and I'm gonna check you guys on the next one. Thank you so much for watching. Peace.